all for being here today. I am Amy Carney, and I am the Deputy Director here at B.E.S.T, and I'm so excited for you to be here with us today. And we know in America that our parental rights are under assault, right? And what in the world is going on in our American public education system? So with us today, I have Luke Rosiak, who is going to talk to us about that. He is an investigative reporter for the Daily Wire. He is an author, and he is most importantly a dad of 2 little girls. But we are here today to talk about his new book, Race to the Bottom. And I just love the tagline of this book. It is so powerful, uncovering the secret forces destroying American public education. So welcome, Luke. And if you could please flush out that tagline for us. What are the secret forces destroying American education today?
Sure, and great to be with you. Of course, there's teachers' unions who believe schools are basically employment centers for adults rather than places to educate children. There's also the self-interested administrators that are obsessed with looking good, and rather than being good. And so if they can conceal problems or lower standards so it looks like people are doing better when in fact they're actually just asking less of kids, they're putting themselves over children. And then the final one that was probably most interesting in the course of researching all the special interest money in the schools is who's behind CRT. And what I found is the philanthropic foundations like the Ford Foundation, Carnegie Foundation, Kellogg Foundation, Rockefeller Foundation. We don't often talk about this. Ford Foundation is not a household name, but it turns out that behind the scenes, they're connected to almost everything that you see manifesting as CRT in the schools. And it kind of makes sense because if you think back to Common Core, which was a big thing in education about 10 years ago, it was notoriously pushed entirely by the Gates Foundation. And so what you have is these billionaires with their philanthropic foundations. They're some of the only people that are powerful enough to influence this massive, almost $1 trillion landscape of K through 12, which is spread across 13,000 school districts. But they have this really sophisticated infrastructure where through these groups that they fund and this massive web of all these different nonprofits pushing this stuff, that's where we're seeing schools move from a place focused on writing and math and science to a place focused on like race and weird ideas that have nothing to do with improving performance of future employees. And it basically all comes back to these philanthropic groups, these foundations.
Right. And I will tell you, after I met you at the Pennsylvania Leadership Conference and got your book, I read it on the whole flight home to Arizona. And I have to say, I loved it, but I was super overwhelmed. I'm a parent of 6, and I've got kids in the public schools. I've got 2 left in the public schools. And so I was like, oh no, there's a lot that we don't understand. I think that's going on behind the scenes, like you said, with these foundations. So what can we as parents do who have our kids in these schools right now, right? We're awake, we're watching, we're educating ourselves, which is the point of B.E.S.T and being on here with you today. What can we do? We don't want to just be overwhelmed and put the blinders back on, right? What can we do? What can we do about these foundations that are behind all this?
Well, basically, the foundations got so much influence because there was this vacuum where parents weren't paying that much attention. And when you would have these school board meetings or these various committees that form for schools, it was always filled by the activists. The regular parents never stepped up. And that's changing already because we're paying attention now. But that's what I would encourage parents to do is believe in yourself, believe that you are qualified to be on the school board or to go to these, join these committees and these roles of influence. For the longest time, it wasn't that parents were lazy. It was that we had misplaced trust. We thought we could trust these people. We thought they were experts and they knew more than us. And it turns out that they have totally failed at doing their job, which is, helping our kids learn in ways that are measurable through test scores. And, until we don't, basically what I try to do is, so first of all, let me just wrap up that thought. Show up, believe in yourself. You don't need some sort of specialized background to run for school board. It's actually better that you do it just as a parent. It's basically a conflict of interest if you're like a teacher or something running. It doesn't make you more qualified. But also understand that the language that they're speaking, when they use this jargon and these big words, it's basically to try to keep you out. Like they'll throw around all the lingo like CSLE and SEL, and they've got this whole alphabet soup. Um, it's not that hard to understand what they're saying. That's one of the things that I try to do in my book is help parents have the confidence by just understanding what it is. But it's not actually that hard. It's actually very stupid ideas that they try to basically use unnecessarily big words to keep you out. So it's just a matter of getting over that psychological hump and being like, this is so important because it's my kid's future at stake, and it's my kid's ability to be a smart person, but also a happy person. So of course it's important, but like, can I do it? Absolutely you can. Don't be intimidated by these people with their doctorates, because the truth is, let's look at academics. And that's the last thing I want to say in for your question about what parents can do is stay focused on test scores. So if you're just a parent who's going to the occasional school board meeting and asking questions, focus everything on test scores, because those are the one thing that they can't falsify. What I found in my book is part of the motivation of CRT. So you have the ideologues who are pushing it for ideological reasons, but the question is like, why do the schools usher it in so freely? And what I found is the administrators like it because it is subjective. It takes the focus off of test scores. So you have these consultants who come in and say, objectivity isn't real, which like, it sounds like insane, but they literally say that. There's no such thing as getting the right answer. There's different right answers in math, all this crazy stuff. And the effect of it is basically, don't pay attention to the fact that 36% of our 12th graders are literate. Don't pay attention to the fact that only 24% of them are proficient in math. Don't pay attention to the fact that only 11% are proficient in American history, because it turns out that according to these racial consultants, wanting the right answer on a test is an attribute of white culture, and reading is a white thing. So these are like deeply not only offensive, but also like preposterous ideas that should be laughed at as the ideas of conspiracy theorists. But the reason that the schools like them is because they take the focus away from the test scores. They lie about everything else. They like using these subjective measures. We'll do social emotional learning and everyone will get a gold star because I say that your emotions are just fine. Well, that introduces a lot of leeway for the teachers just to kind of say whatever, everyone's doing fine. The tests are real. They can't really tamper with them. And so I really encourage parents to stay focused on that. And then they can't try to buttonhole you or pigeonhole you as some sort of partisan either, because it's not partisan to say that you should be able to get the right answer on a math test after taking, a math class if the teachers are doing their job.
Exactly. And I know this is happening across the country. So sometimes we think, and just in our town, right, this is only happening in our school district. But when you're in Virginia, right, I'm in Arizona, and we have the same type of test scores, across the country. And so even for me, when I get up and speak about our low test scores and our low academic achievement, I feel like it's falling on deaf ears though, right? We get up and we talk about this, but what more can we be doing, right? Besides talking to school board members who are not listening, what more can we be doing?
Well, I think ultimately you do need school choice. And I think it would help people on the left and the right. First of all, school choice, which basically means letting people have some of the money that we're spending on their education already, let them spend that with a private school if they want to. That actually has bipartisan majorities in polls. And when you look at what inner city Black Democrats want, they want vouchers. They want to be able to go to those private schools. And it's the great equalizer because it would allow people who aren't just the elite to have those educations that we've traditionally, relegated as the domain of the elite. So that's kind of the end goal that I think would also put a lot of pressure on public schools to actually care what we think. Because right now it really does seem like they treat parents with contempt. But I think there's a balance. We also can't just say, well, we want school choice, so we don't care about what's going on in the public schools, because even if we get our own children out, which, is something that probably a lot of parents should do if they can, homeschool, private school, whatever you can, those kids are still going to have to grow up in a world that is populated by a lot of public school graduates. So this is a bigger issue really for our whole country, where the schools, this odd strain of leftist ideology has captured the schools, that has led them to actually reject academic performance. As crazy as that sounds, the teachers are saying, don't try that hard in school. We don't want you to be that good at math, because they've started focusing on the gaps between groups, between racial groups. And so if they can bring those Asian kids down, they've actually, shrunk the gap, and they'll brag about that. The racial gaps are going away. And so you have to ask is, wait, well, were you just bringing people down, or was anyone actually learning? Because when we're getting rid of magnet schools and honors classes, what we're depriving all of us of is the next person that's going to invent, a vaccine or some great piece of technology that's going to make life better and safer and more prosperous and happier for all of us.
Exactly. Well, I'm so happy that you said in the beginning, don't worry about your accolades to run for school board, because I am running for school board here in Scottsdale. And that's what I hear. Oh, she's just a mom. She's just a writer. She's not an educator. She's not a doctor. She's not a lawyer. So that makes me, want to keep powering through. So we thank you so much for being here. How can people find your book, and where can they follow you?
You can find me on Twitter at Luke Rosiak. Check out my book on Amazon or wherever. It's called Race to the Bottom. And thank you for running for school board. I think mom is the most important qualification. Trust me, you couldn't be doing any worse than the people that are already in charge. So.
Right. That's awesome. So everyone go to parentsknowbest.com, sign up for our emails so you can get on the coalition calls, grab our resources, and follow along with all that we're doing here at B.E.S.T. Thank you so much for joining us today.